I've never met my biological father.
Yeah.
Like I was carrying so much guilt, so much anger, so much resentment, and I was hurting myself. I couldn't sleep. My relationship with women was so unhealthy because I didn't care.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hurt people. And so the therapist told me, who are you punishing? And I said, I'm punishing him for what he did. And he said, no, you're punishing yourself. How? Well, who's hurting? Forgiveness doesn't have to be you going to somebody and say, I forgive you. Forgiveness is a choice you make. And so from that moment on, right,
Today we have Zoe Murphy returning to the pod for the second week in a row. And joining us all the way from New York, Mr. Mark Monplaisir. Mark is an organizational psychologist, wellness coach, public speaker, just to name a few, but he's also authored a couple of books. Be sure to check out the show notes to see his body of work and to follow him on social media. Now, we all have trauma in our lives, and this continues to plague us, even after we thought we had moved on. Trauma affects every relationship we have, be it with our friends, parents, our most intimate relationships, and perhaps the most concerning of all, our children. In his book, Strong Women, Fed Up Men, Defeated Sons, Broken Daughters, Mark masterfully exposes the reasons we have struggled by using his personal story of forgiveness, resilience, pain, in addition to his academic research and amazing talent to simplify all of it so that the rest of us can use this resource in the most practical way. Our relationships, especially in the Black community, have challenges that have deep roots. It's not always just your fault. As Mark brilliantly explains, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. This gives you the tools. The issues have roots from before you were even born. You are a mosaic of hundreds of people. You've inherited their DNA, their habits, their pain. But if you want to learn how to improve those relationships, especially with the family that you created, listen to this episode all the way through. And please share it with your partner and anyone else you think this might benefit. Welcome to Manhood Matters. Let's get to it.
In the living room, finds his voice. Four souls gathered, making a choice. Speak of life's great news, sugar to cope. From a black man's lens, each word a keynote. Mental storms, physical strife, hustling hard, the pulse of life, race love.
We have with us in the studio today our very special guest, Mark Monplaisir. I'm here with my boy, Zoe Murphy, as well. But Mark's written a book, and I had to speed read this thing, bro. Right. And I got to tell you, I've learned so much. And I'm going to let you explain, just give us a quick overview of what it's about, because it's a conversation we absolutely have to have. Right. You know what's cool? I'll say this about your book. I think everyone at 20 years old should be given a copy. I think if you're Black, man or woman, especially women, I want to say, because there's certain things where I wanted to kind of quote your book and be like, babe, come read this. Right. And we had a little disagreement or whatever. And I'm like, I kind of want to communicate it this way. And I don't have the words. I don't have the tools and the resources. Yeah. I feel like I'm not getting through. And reading your words, I think those are tools that anyone could use. And if a man or woman in a relationship together both read it individually and then come together, man, it could be some powerful stuff. Right. But before we start, I got to ask you one question, man.
Yes.
Why the hell is the title so long, bro?
I wanted people to read it and get shocked by it, you know. But man, that was one of the best endorsement and introduction ever.
All right, well, hey man, it was
I appreciate
hard.
that. I appreciate that.
So the name of the book is Strong Women, Fed Up Men, Defeated Sons. I'm still going. Broken Daughters, Healing Generational Pain.
Yeah, that's the dynamic we have in a lot of our communities. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted people to read it and get a sense of, oh, wow, this has been my experience, right? Mm-hmm. Just based on, okay, I'm a fed up man, right? Whatever that means for you. I'm a defeated sons, whatever that means for you. I'm a strong woman, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever that means for you. Ever since I was a kid, I was always curious about why people think the way they do, why they do the things that they do. And I wanted to understand it. And so I started reading. I love talking to people, right? Just to get a sense of their stories, right? Understanding who they are. How did they grow up, right? How did that play into them being who they are today? And even my own story, I wanted to understand myself. And so I was married, got divorced in 2019. And I remember I went to Miami that same week. I moved out, separated. And it was my birthday weekend. I got to get away. I got to just kind of regain yourself, right? Reprocess and then refocus, right? Recenter, all of that. And when I got to Miami, and I remember that night, it was a Friday night, I'm in the hotel room. It was pouring. And I started listening to gospel music. And then I started playing T.D. Jakes. And something came over me. I started bawling, just crying. And I was crying from like maybe 11 p.m. to about 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Right? I started praying. And then it was almost like a revelation. Something said, you need to write a book. And I got back to New York Sunday night. And that same night, I started writing. Like I remember started writing on my phone. And I didn't know what I was going to write about.
Yeah.
But it was just that spirit saying, you need to write a book. And then when I started writing, I was like, okay, well, ideas are coming, they're coming to me, right? And so I gave myself a schedule. Every weekend, I'd spend like 7-8 hours.
Oh, wow.
Saturday, Sunday, just writing, right? And then as I started to structure the book, I wanted to get more stories. And so I started interviewing clients. So I was doing mental health coaching at the time. And I'm like, well, let me talk to this client just to get a sense of her like real story. Like, what would she say to her younger self? What would she do if she had learned different, right? If her foundation was different, how would that have changed her dynamic right now? And as you can see in the book, there are stories about people sharing, okay, well, like writing letters, right, to themselves. And so based on what I've learned, having interviews, hearing people's stories, I can tell you, when people ask me about the book, like, what was your process? I'm like, I don't know. I was so inspired. I was being fed the words.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Right? I was being fed the words. And I gave myself about a year. I started in August, started writing it, and it was done the following August. I had beta readers, like people reading the book, just to let me know what you think, right? Like, does it make sense, right? Do you think it aligns with people's stories? Because it's my story, a lot of it, right? And it's a lot of people's stories that I grew up with and seeing their dynamics and getting to understand who they are. But I'm like, let me get a true feedback from people. People were crying.
Yeah.
I mean, they read the book, they were crying. They were like, this is my story. I was never aware of it, but this was my experience. And so from understanding even the foundations we inherited from slavery, right, to understanding how we've been taught, we've been conditioned to see ourselves a certain way. And now we learning purpose, we learning forgiveness, right? We learning, generational pain. We learning to see our parents, not just as our parents, but as a man and a woman, right? What have we learned that we can actually unlearn so we can create our own dynamic? And so the book has been very powerful in that sense. And, it's also at the libraries, public libraries in New York, because somebody was like, this book needs to be at the libraries. It needs to be at schools,
that's
right?
Awesome.
Haven't gotten into the school system yet. That's why I said this was one of the best endorsements, because people read the book and was like, wow, this is powerful.
Yeah.
Because many of us have never heard, right, stuff like this before. Many of us never really took time to even think about the foundation that we inherited, right? Whether it's from our parents or if we want to take it all the way back from slavery. Talking about self-awareness, talking about generational awareness, talking about cultural awareness. How can we actually learn what those things are, those detrimental patterns, unhealthy traditions, and then we can unlearn what they are so we can make room for something healthier.
The reason you had that reaction from a lot of people is because I think we are made to believe at times that our story is unique.
Right.
When I was going through it, I believe I was the only one.
Right.
I was in a very unhappy, unhealthy relationship because of both sides. Because I had my brokenness and my issues, and I didn't recognize them, and she had hers, and we get together, and I'm supposed to be your everything? No, I'm not that. So then it's all these different things.
Yeah.
And again, if I had the tools to understand that and deal with it. So yes, and people would look at that, and people will look at their stories, but they can find themselves in your stories. Right. But what I love about it too, you just said, this is my story. I slightly disagree. Well, I don't disagree. It is your story. But here's what I found in reading the book. it's your story accompanied by an instruction manual that goes along with every step. It breaks it down. If I get into a fight with my wife right now about the rice is too hot or too salty or whatever it is, that's not really what that fight is about. That fight's about something much deeper. So the way you communicate and you resolve any conflict is you have to really understand what is the initial conflict or what's the reason for it. So I think that's what I love about your book, because your book goes back to explaining why. You know, we had this episode on Haiti when we talked about the reasons Haiti is the way it is because of X, Y, and Z. Now you can understand why people are the way they are. Well, if I know why, not what's wrong with me, but the trauma, the generational trauma, the DNA, what's been imprinted, you know, I'm a mosaic of hundreds of ancestors, you know, and then here I am, and so is this other person, and they had their own shit to deal with, and then you break it down by going way back, even when you talk about, hey, this is how the masters addressed the slaves, and then when we got our freedom, that's how we address our children, not the healthy way.
I didn't want to talk about slavery. And, you know, and as you can see, it's really brief. The first chapter talks about the foundation. We can get lost in that, right? But I wanted us to understand we didn't create this. This may not be our fault, but we're still responsible, even though we didn't create it, right?
I like that.
And so you know,
go ahead, Zoe. What you got?
Right?
I can't know.
So, you know, so we have to understand, just because somebody gave me a story, a foundation, doesn't mean that I have to keep building on it. I can still go and scrape that bottom and start building differently. If it's crooked, I can still add layers to make it straight. That way I can build what I want. Even when we talk about our parents, right? We have to look at their dynamic, because they taught us to be a version of themselves. And that's something I had to do, right? Look at my mom and even my grandparents. And I'll talk about that. I think I talk about it in the book when I had to go to Haiti in 2008 because I lost who I was. Right? I lost me. So I needed to go back to where I came from, right? To who raised me. So I could get a sense of, you know what, this is the foundation you were given. I have to learn to be objective and say, you know what, I still love you as my mom, but you weren't perfect. The way you raised me was not perfect. So now what can I do about that? Because I'm not blaming you. That's what you knew. That's what you had. I had a conversation with my mom a few years ago. She's very loving to my daughter. And I said, well, you've actually never told me you love me.
Wow.
And she said, I know, because when I was growing up, I didn't even know love was a thing.
Wow.
And that broke me.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I am sorry, but I love you. And so I had to learn to empathize with her experience so I could actually forgive her. Our communities, right? Oftentimes, it's not necessarily that a lot of the things that we do are wrong. They're different because that's what we know, right? But they're unhealthy. Oftentimes when we see things as wrong or right, you know, right and wrong, then we tend to not face them because then we associate those things with our essence, right? But if we can say, well, this is unhealthy, then I have to look at that thing and not necessarily me, right? I'm always going to be this person, but what I do can be different. So that first chapter talks about what we were given, that foundation. We have to face it. And even when I talk about learning our history, we may not know exactly all the details, but we have to know this is not who we are. We have to know those unhealthy patterns like of hating ourselves or not seeing beauty when we look at somebody, you know, of African descent who has dark skin, right? We have to understand those things that those are not who we are, right? Those are things that we were given and we were taught. And so we have to confront them. And when we can do it, we can actually step back and say, you know what, I'm great. And one thing as a Christian, I see myself as an image of God, not the image stature, you know, white folks want us to see as God. But for me, like having that spiritual being where you can't see God. So my perception of myself is greatness because God is great. My perception of myself is I'm loving because I see God as a loving God. I can still be tough. I can still hold power. Right? In fact, I hold power because nobody can take that from me. And it's a choice. That has to be based from learning what we were taught, that were unhealthy, to what we're choosing to build as our own foundation, right?
You know, I think the thing that we are often accused of is being victim-minded. We hear that all the time. But we have to understand that we are not looking to get anything for free. And we're also not looking to ascribe blame so that people can feel bad, because there is in fact a difference between fault and responsibility. Fault just means the reason why we got here. There's a series of circumstances that led to our present situation,
Right.
Because otherwise, and this would be the thing that we really could circle back to talk to at some point in time, but there's an assumption with some of our racist voices in this world that there's just something wrong with us. I'm talking about black everything.
Yeah.
They called it a shithole country as a general term, as an equivocation to any place that cranks out brown people. You know what I mean? So we didn't do this to ourselves, but we can't wait for the people who did it to us to pull us from the position.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that, I think that applies to our relationships with our women.
Yeah.
That applies to our positioning in the world now. Mind you, the people whose fault it is don't want to hear any parts of it.
Right.
It doesn't matter what metric we use to appeal to their sense of good judgment or kindness.
Yeah.
I've been giving thought to this. When it comes down to European Americans, we have to recognize that we are dealing with the descendants of Vikings. They're very proud of that. But if we look at the Viking culture, you have to recognize that what was the goal? To make it to Valhalla. And there were two ways to do so. And that was in some, or that was at the end of a blade. So this sense of sex and violence being relegated to black folks is silly.
All right. So, Mark, I got a question for you. Yes. You highlight historical trauma's role in shaping fed up men and defeated sons.
Yeah.
So how does this collective pain distort masculinity in today's black man?
Well, that's a great question. Let's go back to, especially when we're talking about the Americas, right? Whether it's, here in the U.S. or Jamaica or even Haiti. When you look at how black men used to be treated, you were still a boy. You could be 60 years old. You were a boy. Because of that treatment, a lot of, again, we're taking it back to slavery, and I'll bring it back to more modern. Because of that treatment, you were never really almost like allowed to be a man. Going back to a son, you're working in the field, you're doing all these things, and oftentimes it's never enough. You can never work hard enough. You can never produce enough. When we think that we're not getting it right and we keep trying, that leads to defeat. And at that point, it's like, man, I've been working so hard my whole life and it still doesn't amount to anything. You get fed up.
Frustration.
Right? A lot of frustration. And so for a lot of men, oftentimes we get into this cocoon where we're like, you know what? I'll drink. I'll, revert to women or violence. Or just give up. Even when we look at the 60s, right, where men could not be in the house because of the system, we've always been seen as what we can do, right? What we can produce, what we can provide. And so a lot of those narratives have been passed down. If you're not providing happiness or financial provision, right, whatever it is, right, you're not a real man. The way this shows up now, a lot of boys are growing up in homes where they're the man of the house.
Yeah.
At 10 years old, at 12-year-olds, right? Like they become the man of the house.
Yeah.
5-year-olds.
You don't know how to be a man.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. 5-year-olds.
Right.
The only boy.
Right. You don't know how to be a man. And I'm not even talking about providing. It's just the sense that if you a boy, right, especially if you grew up with a single mom, you want to protect.
Yeah.
That is not your job. Again, remember, right? They take on that role, or the role has been placed on them. And because they can't meet the needs of that role, they have a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
They defeated because, again, you don't know what you're doing. You're a boy. This is not your role. If they're doing something, right? If let's say they break something down and they're trying to put it back together, they keep trying, they can't do it. Eventually they'll break it even more.
Yep.
Or they just give up. And that's where the defeat comes in. And so when we look at, especially relationally, right, a lot of young boys, that is not their forte, to build relationships at a young age.
So then when they're told they're not masculine enough or they have toxic masculinity, does that come from that?
It does, because we have a poor sense of what masculinity is.
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
Why don't you break it down for us?
So especially in the black community, I love my black people, by the way, right? I love my black folks.
This book's for them. this is us trying to do better.
Exactly. Yeah. And I wrote the book for my people,
for
right?
us, yeah.
The thing is, we associate masculinity with toughness, with authority, right? That's not what masculinity is. Masculinity is me taking care of the folks around me. Is me being responsible.
Service.
Is me exactly, right? Is me serving others, right? So as a man, when we talk about provision and protecting, I am serving my community. I'm serving my household. I'm serving my people, right?
Yeah.
But because of European standard, we want black men to be like white men.
What's the distinction?
So in the way they behave,
Okay.
the way they provide, but we're not looking at what was, where we started.
Right.
Right. We're not looking at the fact that, the European community had 20 steps ahead of us. So our
You're missing a zero.
Exactly. Right.
200 steps. But sure.
Right. Right. We never took time to actually build together, to actually understand one another. So now you have this modern culture of toxic masculinity that black people didn't invent, by the way. When this whole thing about toxic masculinity was invented, they were talking about crappy men who were using money to intimidate, to manipulate, and abuse people.
Using
You
money,
did a great
power.
job of not using the words or the names. You're a good man.
Right. Right. So now we embrace it, and we owning it, we claiming it, and that's one thing we may talk about that too. We tend to claim things that don't belong to us, to describe us, to associate with us, and that is very detrimental.
Give me an example of that.
Well, I mean, so even when we talk about the toxic masculinity,
Gotcha.
right? Yeah, that's a big example of it, right?
Yeah.
And so, but we embrace the narratives that have been created by other people. Anytime a word is trending, I refuse to use it.
To embrace it. Yeah.
I refuse because it's not healthy. There's no substance in it, right?
Yeah. And to stay on topic, so say a black woman gets with a white guy.
Yeah.
Her expectations of that guy are very different. White guy doesn't have to perform as well because it's all a performance from us, mostly men, because we have to do X, Y, and Z. I'm not saying that women don't have their own set of performances, but they show more grace, more patience. All black men are this, all black men are that. So talk to us about that, because you really did a great job of explaining why that is and what their expectations were in the first place.
Right. Yeah. If we take it all the way back, we have to look at how back then black women saw white men. They were powerful. They were the providers. They were the protectors. They were the men who actually had resources. And so that created a false perception of black men, right? You can't protect me. Right? You can't provide for me because we were both slaves, right? And so moving forward, we look at each other as the source of our pain. Even as a man, if I'm walking down the street, I see a black man in hoodie and saggy pants, automatically I'm like, well, I'm not safe.
The spidey senses go up a little bit.
Exactly. And again, we're taught those things.
Yeah.
And so when we get in relationships, even so when black women get into a relationship with a white man, automatically she feels safe. Despite the fact that they were the abusers, right? They were the killers, the lynchers.
Yeah.
But she'll see him as a safe space because, well, I've been told that, black men are dangerous, that black men can't protect me. They're the ones hurting me. So now you don't feel safe.
Correct.
Right? With a black man, and your guard's up, you have to be, you have to show up guarded. But when you get with the white man and you feel like, well, they provide, they take care of their family, I don't have to worry, even if that's not the case. But that initial perception, I'm safe, means I don't have to be aggressive. I'm safe means you get a pass. I'm safe means you're not going to hurt me. You're not going to leave me. And so, again, we have to understand where those things come from. Imagine, right? Imagine you're a black woman, right? You getting abused by your slave master. The black man can't do anything to help you.
And that's supposed to be a protector.
That's
supposed
supposed
to
to be
a
a protector.
He's
right?
left helpless.
So that leads to resentment.
Yeah, where were you?
Where were you? I was hurting. I was being, the R word.
Yeah.
You never did anything.
Yeah.
So how can I trust you to actually protect me now? And again, those things are not being said out loud. They're inherited. They're passed down from generations to generations without even being taught because the behavior's there, right? Their mindset is there.
Yeah.
The feelings are there. Black men do it too. They get with a white woman, right? Their perception of that relationship is different.
Yeah.
She's
softer.
She's softer.
She's more
right.
feminine. She's
exactly.
more relaxed.
Cooperative.
She listens to me.
Exactly.
I can lead without
Submissive.
resistance.
Exactly. So
And we forget why our women were resistant to begin with.
Yes. Yes. So again, we have to understand where we come from, and we have to get rid of those narratives so we can actually, you know what, I see you. We went through the same thing. Now it's our time to actually heal together. Right. But we both have to be in the same space where we actually accept that we're hurting. Yes, those things happen. Yes, I inherited those. Yes, those were the experiences. Yes, my parents never taught me that. But what can I do now? How can I actually have healthy relationships with the people around me? Do I keep using the same tools and traditions and patterns that have been passed down from generations to generations, or do I stop the buck? I'm choosing to be different. I'm choosing to do differently.
Yeah. And so let me ask you this, because this is your space as well. Awareness alone doesn't change behavior. Knowing it doesn't mean you change. So what are some tangible practices that you can adopt, or you would recommend that other young men adopt, in order to heal and combat those generational wounds, especially in young men?
I think that one of the things that we don't do as young Black men is pay attention to self-love. I think we had talked about it a bit earlier, right? We're husbands and fathers, and our lives have been predicated in service always. So we are always on the grind. We are always looking to take care of everyone and everything. But we don't turn around and take care of us. The thought was that taking care of ourselves was selfish. When you really give yourself some love, say, I'm going to look into therapy. I'm going to look into asking myself the questions as to why I do the things that I do, and why have I established some of the patterns that I have? Why do I have these habits, right? And then coming up with reasonable answers and looking at the things that are beneficial and the things that are not, you can figure out where to eat the fish and spit out the bones. And then once you really attribute that time to loving on yourself, I think the natural outgrowth of it is going to just be to spill over onto the people around you. There was a great question. How? Take care of you first. When you're getting into a good place, you're just going to have a full cup. And out of that fullness, you will find the ability to be creative and kind and generous and thoughtful.
So what's the balance so we can still practice that sacrificial love, but not have resentment for the people that we're practicing it for?
Yes.
So there's a balance so that we don't burn out.
I'd reject the idea of sacrificial love being necessary.
Okay.
I think that it is rooted in a Judeo-Christian construct. And this is with respect to, the faith. I spent 25 years as an evangelical Christian, and I recognize that the demonstration of love is evidenced by sacrifice in the cases of Christ. And I think that that is transpired into our culture, whereas the man, as the head of the household, is to love his wife as Christ loves the church. And that's evidenced by sacrifice, meaning so that I go without so that you can have. I don't think that that is the best way to lead. And even in the old African proverb, what do we say to one another to check up on each other? We don't say, how have you been doing? We ask, how are the children? I don't think there's ever a place where we needed to, where we were allowed time to choose self first. And it sounds selfish, but if you don't refill your own tank first, you're going to be pouring from an empty cup. And I don't think that's selfish. I think it's setting everybody up for failure.
Yeah.
So can I just add something?
Of course.
Yeah. For me, the way I look at the sacrificial love, right? If you think of leadership, it's a responsibility. It's not just a position, it's a responsibility where you have to make sure that your subordinates are good. They're provided for, they're protected. It doesn't mean you first or you only, it means you too. So we're talking about self-care and self-love. It doesn't mean that you only take care of you. You take care of you so you can take care of those around you, right? Even when we're talking about having that balance or even providing that sacrificial love, it's sharing in a sense of leadership. I am taking on this responsibility to make sure that you good, to make sure I cover you, right? But for me to be able to cover you, I actually do have to have me covered, right? And for me, I believe that God is covering me. And I also look at me, if I'm not at my best, then I'm doing God a disservice, right?
Yeah.
And so I have to make sure that if I am in a space to protect and provide for my family or my mentees, or whether it's a group I'm leading a church, I have to make sure I'm good.
Yes.
Right? Because I'm doing God's work. Even in relationships, right? It's not my relationship. I'm managing a relationship for God. Right? Because at any moment it can be taken away if it's just about me. When you see it that way, you don't see yourself as not receiving, because even if I share with the folks around me in my community, right, in my household, my friends, I don't look to receive anything in return, right? Not even a thank you. If I want to share my best, like with my daughter, I have to be my best. I exercise because I don't want my daughter to wake up, one day when I'm like 60 and she has to take care of me.
Yes.
And that's love. That's me protecting her.
And I think even in doing that, you see that it becomes easier to set boundaries.
Absolutely.
Right, because we love these people so much and we want to take care of them and give them everything and show them the best. But it also becomes very important for us to learn how to say no.
You have to.
And I know that for all of us having daughters, no is hard sometimes. They know exactly how to work our little heartstrings to the extent to whereas, those no's start breaking down sometimes. So I recognize that when it's Dad, can we go and spend some time together now? Or that it is so hard to do. But to say, no, baby, Daddy's got to get a little bit of sleep.
Right. But you have to look at it as that protection and providing, right?
Yes.
So me saying no sometimes is me protecting her.
Yes.
Right.
And choosing myself in that moment.
That's you protecting her.
Even though I know she wants it. And so even though it's for me right now, the big picture, it's for her benefit.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found was, they did not like this. I am on my second marriage. I was married for 20 years on my first go around. And so my second marriage, I'm about where you are, and we're right at about 3 years. And so one of the things that I'm learning from being a husband in this space is that prioritizing my wife and creating a sense of structure in the house was so important.
Yeah.
The kids, after a short period of time, they wanted to know, this new woman is here. What is the pecking order? Who's your favorite person? And I, without hesitation, looked at each of them and said, Brittany is my favorite person. And they were incredulous.
Brittany's your wife.
It's my wife, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they were incredulous. My oldest daughter looked at me with, her mouth agape. How could she be your favorite person? I said, because you, beloved, are going to leave me one day.
Yeah.
And your younger sister, and that's been the sole focus of my life. I am not the best culmination of the Murphy name. You are. I said, my entire life has been dedicated to being able to get your ass to fly up out this nest.
Really, they asked the wrong question. They used the wrong word.
Right.
If you ask me who my favorite person is, there's a way I answer that question. But if you ask me who's the priority in my life, as far as the pecking order, as you mentioned, forget the heartstrings. Now we're talking about my responsibilities as a man and the commitment that I've made.
So I talked about this in the book too, right? Who comes first?
Yeah.
Everybody comes first. So here's the thing. The love that I share with my significant other is not the same love you share with your children.
Correct. Your experience is totally different.
It's different, right?
Yeah.
I love you all the same. You are all priorities. Now, it looks different based on who I'm sharing it with. And so oftentimes we don't feel like we have enough love to share with everybody around us. Yeah. And so we learn to compartmentalize. I'm choosing to give you that much love. I'm choosing to give you, this little bit of love, right? Where we could just look at it as one big love, but I'm sharing it differently with different people.
May I challenge that a bit?
Yeah.
In the respect of sometimes, even though there's a big shared family group love, like no one's necessarily missing out on that, because the way, and I hear what you're saying to the effect that the way that I love you as my daughter is so different from the way that I love my wife, but no less powerful or significant, so that you're not missing anything. And I wanted to make sure I understood that that's what you were saying. Right. But I also think that there's a place where, when you get off of work, you have to decide who you're going to spend time with first. I'm going to check in with my wife first.
Right. That's
and sit with her. And now, mind you, and it's not that it takes anything away from the kids, even though in the moment they're not happy about it.
Right.
Every time that door closes, to this day, my 16-year-old is almost 5'11", and I will see her little shadow lurking outside the door. And if she's knocking and I'm saying, hey, honey, can you give us just a little bit more time? It's
right. So here's the thing, though. You kind of created that dynamic because you separated the love. I wouldn't have a nominal structure where you first, you second. Like I wouldn't say my wife is my first priority. She's a priority.
Okay.
So are you. Everybody's a priority. But right now, I need to spend time with her.
That sounds like everybody gets a ribbon after the
yeah.
race.
Well,
And not, you know what I mean? Like, so for us laymen, right?
That's
So
funny.
when I hear that, I go, okay,
Yeah.
well, someone had to win the race, right? There's five
Yeah.
people running. Who came first? Who came second? How do you say you're all priorities?
Yeah.
Sounds like you're all winners, but we know someone did win. So when it comes to that, you said not to make it nominal. Break that down for us and explain it so I can understand it better.
Right. So when we look at family, right, I love the dynamic, right, the structure you create. The verbiage, however, I would have formulated it differently in terms of, this is the priority or this is the, number one, right? Because what I've noticed, right, when we have this, okay, she's a priority or he's a priority, then that means, well, I'm not. Again, I'm not saying that's what it is, but oftentimes children will associate me not being a priority as I'm less important.
Yeah.
Because again, there's no difference in loving your family, right? Sure. You love them differently. It doesn't matter if they're teenagers or adolescents or infants or whatever, right? But the way we say things matter because that's what they internalize.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, sir.
And so
And some of that is just more geared toward the personalities of the kids.
Yeah.
My oldest daughter is the shock value child. So I will communicate with her a bit more radically and bluntly sometimes just to get her attention because she'll lose interest so fast.
Got it.
So
Teenagers.
some of that was like, people say all the time that, you parent them when they're younger so that you can be friends with them while they're older. And it's weird. I'm starting to see that.
Yeah.
Like now the boy is a grown up and he wants to be back here and I hear about everything. Y'all hear me? And it's I feel so lucky to know those details.
I love you all the same, but there's a different love that I'm going to give to this one.
Exactly.
But if you ask me my priority, and I go, well, you're all my priorities, I don't think any of my kids would accept that as an answer and just go skip away with a cookie.
It depends like what's going on today.
Right. So here's the thing though, right? So actually,
I guess the word that I'm hung up on is priority. If that question comes up.
So I remember this episode from My Wife and Kids when Michael's wife Gina and his sister were fighting. They asked him this question: if we were both drowning, who would you save first? And he said, I would probably die trying to save you both, right? Because I love you both just equally. So the point is, I can prioritize this person right now because they need me right now. I can prioritize my wife right now because that's what the relationship needs right now.
That's a great answer.
Right?
I understand what you're saying. So now the best way to answer the question is to say, well, it depends on the situation.
Exactly.
I would save the one who couldn't swim.
Yeah. So the answer
They're both
is,
drowning.
Yeah. They're both
If
drowning.
you've got a strong swimmer here, I'm going to get the one that can't swim.
None of them know how to swim.
Right. And that's just, but our logical brains think like that.
Right,
Later
but-
on, someone's going to be angry, but I'm like, baby, you swim 25 laps a day. This one drowns in a foot of water. What did you think I was going to do?
It's a very illogical question to ask somebody.
It's not
right?
made to be
right.
It's logical.
Exactly. It's it's just that somebody wants to know that they are on your priority radar.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. I forgot what this paradox is, but it's one where there's a bus, you're driving it, and there's your daughter on one side, and you can't stop this bus, right? You got to go left or right.
Right.
And on the other side, there's 20 people, mothers, children, babies. Who do you drive the bus into?
Right.
Easy question for me.
Exactly. But here's the thing. That wasn't a logical answer.
Right.
Because if you were thinking logically, you'd be like, well, baby, I can save 20 people.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah,
So it's not even about logic.
It's not about logic.
It's just the fact that when somebody asks you that question, they want to feel like they're a priority.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's
and
true.
the moment you tell them, well, this person is the priority, then you kind of push them aside
great
and
way
make
of
them
putting
feel
it.
like they're second.
I'm seeing it now in a different lens based on the way you put that.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's
Me as
no,
well. Thank you.
It's,
Of course.
it's no different than the whole Black Lives Matter movement where you go, all lives matter. Well, sure, they all do. But
in
right
this
now,
moment.
in this moment,
Yeah.
this one matters for this reason.
Yes.
And this is what we're talking
Exactly.
about. It's not saying yours doesn't matter.
Right.
And so it breaks it down
Right.
to explain it that way too. Yeah, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, Mark, in your book, you advocate forgiveness quite a bit.
Yeah.
And reading your story, seeing what you had to forgive, I can see where you're coming from. And I guess it took a whole lot to get you there. But how do you reconcile that? How do you reconcile that with holding individuals accountable,
Yeah.
especially men,
Right.
fathers, who have hurt other people, like hurt you, hurt your
Yeah.
family, hurt your mom.
Right.
How do you hold these people accountable and still find a way to forgive them?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, forgiveness is for me, right? You're doing it for yourself. However, forgiveness doesn't mean that I'm not holding you accountable. I can still hold you accountable for messing up, but I'm not holding it against you. And I'm also not holding you hostage in my head. So when we don't forgive, right, it's almost like we convincing ourselves this person has to live in my head in a negative way. And that hurts you. Because whoever you don't forgive, they could be out there living their best life.
Absolutely.
They're not
Right.
thinking about you.
No, but you walking around holding them hostage when they ain't even thinking about you, right? So when it comes to forgiveness, nobody who is happy or in a good space, who's satisfied with their lives, will hurt somebody else. If you can do something hurtful to somebody else, to me, something is going on with you. And so I have learned to empathize with people. Like me forgiving you could be me never talking to you ever again. At peace, not having to worry about you. And so when I forgive you, I'm doing it for myself. But based on that forgiveness, I can give you grace. You're not going to hurt me again, right? Because I forgive you. And now that forgiveness comes with boundaries.
Yes.
Right? That forgiveness comes with repositioning your space in my life. That forgiveness comes with me holding you accountable.
Have you ever had to forgive someone that you never even had a chance to tell them that they were forgiven? So you had to pretty much do it by yourself in your own head.
Absolutely.
What does that feel like? Because I've tried it. It didn't work. But then I had to say to myself as I'm growing spiritually, no, I forgive this person, right? So I said it in prayer. I said it in meditation.
Yeah.
But then a year later, I find I'm not thinking about this person, but if the thought comes up, it evokes the same emotions.
Right.
So I go, have I forgiven?
Right.
I think I need to say this prayer again. And I'll have to say again out loud, I forgive so-and-so.
It's a process.
Yeah.
It's a process. And for me, right? And one thing actually that was huge, I've never met my biological father.
Yeah.
And I used to be angry. And I used to say, if I ever met this dude, I will kill him.
Yeah, that's anger.
I used to be angry.
Yeah.
And I went to therapy.
Especially when you got all diesel and shit. You're like, you know you could put them put hands on him.
I'm sure he's older now.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm bigger than him. I'm in shape.
Right.
Still get his ass kicked.
So I went to therapy, right? And it was 2006. Like I was carrying so much, so much guilt, so much anger, so much resentment. And I was hurting myself. I couldn't sleep. My relationship with women was so unhealthy because I didn't care.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hurt people. And so the therapist told me, who are you punishing? And I said, I'm punishing him for what he did. And he said, no, you're punishing yourself. How? Well, who's hurting? Forgiveness doesn't have to be you going to somebody and say, I forgive you. Forgiveness is a choice you make. And so from that moment on, right, it took a few months, right, for me to say, you know what, I need to get rid of this. Because I'm like, there's a purpose for this to have happened. Yeah. And I'm choosing to embrace it. I can't be mad at what happened. And then he said, you have to forgive your mom. I said, come on, man, that's a lot. Because she was there.
Yeah.
And she took out her anger on me.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, you want me to forgive her? She was an adult. I was a kid. But then he said, again, who you're hurting. And the way I forgive her was to understand her story. And that helped me empathize with her. Wow, you were a kid doing this.
Yeah.
If I was 15 having a kid, I don't know what I would have done.
Shit. I still had toys at 15, bro. You know?
I did too.
We all did.
Transformers.
We were kids.
Oh, they were old, but I have
That's kids'
I
age.
had toys.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like bigger toys.
And a Nintendo.
That's a kid's age, right? And then to couple that with the shame she brought to the family. My grandparents sent her away. Wow. So I learned to empathize and say, you know what? I'm sorry.
She was hurting.
She was hurting. She started crying.
Yeah, she was hurting.
Yeah.
I started crying. And that moment was the pivotal point of our healing journey.
And speaking of parent-child interactions across generations or across genders in this particular case, a son and a mother and a father and a daughter, you discuss this parent-child healing quite a bit in the book. Yeah. So what's one unexpected insight from the book that you want Black fathers to learn from your work about the way they bond with their daughters and sons?
Right. Wow. That's a big
really great question.
That's a big one. We are the blueprint, man. to personalize it, one thing I had to learn, I couldn't carry the burden of my birth father to my daughter. I couldn't. Man, I made it such a huge responsibility in my mission to heal. Therapy, coaching, some guys getting together, having conversations. How can we be different?
And you figured this out on your own. You pretty much said,
did.
okay, I need to.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes I want to ask my kids for forgiveness because when I became a father, I needed therapy.
Right.
And then I spent 10 years in the most miserable time of my life post having that first kid.
Yeah.
Showing her nothing but trauma.
I did it.
Reinforcing the trauma.
Yeah.
And all I needed to do was find that healing.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I never turned it down. It was not something that was just in my radar.
Right.
No one offered it to me.
Yeah.
I'm older than you are, so those 10 years make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
As an adult in the 90s, we don't have those conversations, right? There's no better help, no online therapy. I barely got internet. So
Walk it off.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Put some dirt on it and go figure it out. So all I knew was the way to parent based on the way I watched myself be parented. But at the same token, I thought I knew better by going, I won't do that because my father did that. And there was so much of him in me that I didn't know, I didn't recognize until it was too late and past that point. So kudos to you for saying, recognizing, hey, I don't want to pass this on to my children.
Can I speak to that in terms of asking the children for forgiveness? I did that, and I would say it changed our relationship. And to the extent that I talked to them and I told them, I was like, look, when your mom and I were going through it, you were getting the full swath of all of our trauma. And without any context, I had to be the one in our case to acknowledge one band, one sound.
Yeah.
So whatever their mother told them, I had to go with. Then I had to be the bad guy, unfortunately.
Right.
But I will say this, that, the relationship changed so much when I came to them and said, hey, I was not a great dad during this time frame. I was not able to be available to you emotionally. I was grouchy. I was dismissive. I was neglectful to your emotional needs for this period of time, and that was wrong. And so I recognize that damaged the relationship, and I understand why you would be reluctant to want to talk to me because I don't deserve that.
Yeah. Nothing brings closeness and oneness more than vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, so good.
And so I have this thing I do with my daughter, right? Almost like every month. Yeah. We ask each other, what can we do? And what can I do to be a better dad?
I love that.
And then she's like, what can I do to be a better daughter? We have such a deep connection, relationship. It's amazing, right? We'll sit down and talk and play dominoes and cards for hours.
You're raising a real little Haitian,
right? Exactly. Like playing dominoes. Yep. So it's important, man, to have these vulnerable moments where you ask each other, because I can't always see my blind spots, right? I'm not always aware.
Yeah. Speaking of vulnerability and weakness, leads me to my very next question, which is, communities, they often see, or they resist rather, vulnerability.
Right.
How can someone, man or woman, initiate conversations about emotional wellness in spaces that label it as weakness?
That's a tough one. It's a tough one. And it's hard to be vulnerable if you don't feel safe. And especially in our communities, we've been taught to believe that vulnerability is a sign of weakness. If I'm having this relationship with you, what's the purpose? Why are we doing this? So seeking to understand foundational dynamics. What is this built on? Is it love? Is it responsibilities? Is it compassion? Is it me having a desire to see you grow and prosper? Am I that safe space for you? So all those things really come together and say, okay, well, this is different from what I knew. This is different from what I grew up with. Do my children feel safe coming to me? If you mess up, do I get mad at you or do I get mad at what you did? So your actions are not you. They're not your essence.
That's not your identity.
Right?
Just something you did.
Exactly.
I heard two things in these milestones, which were really powerful.
Yeah.
Have I forgiven?
Right.
My God, that's a really, really good one.
Yeah.
And am I creating a safe space for my children or even those around me? Is there another one? Is there a third?
Purpose. What is the purpose?
Okay.
Why are we doing this? Right? What do we hope to accomplish? And the why is always more powerful than what you're actually doing. I'm doing this because I want to see you grow. I'm doing this because I want to protect you. I want to love you. so deeply.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing this because it is my responsibility. I've chosen this. And so if I've made that choice, I actually have to make sure I take care of every responsibility that comes with that choice. So why are we doing this? So always asking the purpose of every interaction, that way you can actually see them clearly.
I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
The question for you, Mark, is some might interpret your message as placing too much on the individual rather than the systems, either that was designed to get us where we are or to keep us where we are.
Right.
So how do you mitigate structural barriers while still empowering personal change?
Well, like Zoe said earlier, you cannot expect the people who created the system to come save you. The system will always going to be there, right? So if you don't change, you can't create a different system. So I think it's important to actually see the individual aspect of it first, and that way we can actually come together and create a system that works for us. And so one of the reasons why I write or I speak and I do workshops, because I want people to be responsible, take ownership of themselves, right? I'm actually working on this 6 weeks program. It's called Designing Your Superpower Life, the Power of Self-Ownership. Even, if this system was different, if you're not in a mental space to actually understand the system and receive it, it won't change for you. And so I think it's important to, look at the individual aspect of it and say, you know what, I'm choosing to change my household. I'm choosing to change me. It has to start small so we can actually get bigger. If we're looking at the bigger space, the bigger picture, right? We cannot change the bigger
That's
picture.
generations removed. If it ever changes.
It's designed to be this way.
Right.
It's functioning the way it was supposed to.
Exactly. Because you can't, because if you say, well, I'm going to focus on the system, there's always going to be pushback, even if it's unhealthy.
Yeah.
So if I want to change the system, I have to get people to change. So we can actually create a system that works collectively for us as Black folks.
That's a great place to end it, man.
Yeah.
How do people find you?
I am on social media. If you Google my name, Mark Monplaisir, MarkMonplaisir, you'll find me everywhere, really. But Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I have a website called healingvibes.org.
Thanks immensely, brother, for being here, being part of the show, all the way from New York.
Yes.
I'm going to pretend you came here just for me.
I'll take that. I'll take
just
that.
for the show.
I shouldn't be dead.
I did.
That's exactly what happened.
That was the point.
Yeah, exactly. And Zoe, thank you, brother, for being here, man.
Thank you for
appreciate
inviting me,
your appreciate your input, brother. Do you have social media where people can find you?
I do. I can be found at RedDog_Murph. I'm kind of on TikTok right now. I deleted my Facebook account. Red Dog Murph is also on Instagram.
Cool.
Good. So, as you know, traditionally, when we end the show, someone has to read the outro notes.
Yeah, it's funny.
Doing an impression. Yeah, man. So, Mark Monplaisir has lost the coin toss again. So, again, 2 days in a row. All right, so we flipped it. It looks like Zoe.
Right? Zoe's got it.
Zoe's got it, man. He volunteered. He's going to do it. And you're going to do M'Baku from Black Panther.
All right,
let's get it, bro.
So, my brothers have invited us here to express our views on manhood and matters of manhood. And so for this, I am grateful. And so we would ask for you, our dear listeners, to please support us all by following the show. You will leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. To be fair, we appreciate you tuning in. So we say thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you next week when we'll share conversations surrounding real issues we as men deal with every day. It never changes. One thing to know is that manhood matters. We are out. We are out.
Awesome, brother.
Oh man, that was good. That was good.
That's my worst accent.
We are watched from the mountains.
I'm terrible.
Tackling issues that never end from our perspective. Raw and true. A podcast for all our point of view.
Hey guys, a quick word. The purpose of this show is to educate and entertain. We love bringing you valuable tools that you can utilize, but this is in no way supposed to be a substitute for any medical advice, legal advice, and we are not therapists. If you are struggling with anything, consult a licensed therapist, counselor, but we do send you our love and our strength. And before I go, this is the most important thing that's happening today. Today is July 28th, 2025, when this episode is released. And it's my baby girl's birthday. She turns 10 today, and she's so excited. Eva, you are my heart. I love you so much, baby. And I want to take this moment to wish you the happiest birthday of all. Welcome to double digits. And I will see you on our date this evening. Love you, baby.